see that table over there, and I know it's there instead.
Okay.
Because this is going to cover some people from being able to see the timer. But,
He can probably do that. He's got the skills.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea how you want to have to go about something.
test the sound. Test, test, test.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Life is good.
It won't be hitting your knee on the VCR. I saw that. Yes. I'm stoked.
I did see that. That was awesome. Thank you.
This is worth trying. Yeah, and you can see all this from the camera. That I'm gonna do something from this desk to that desk and move that timer over to that corner.
Okay.
Because I think this kind of covers some of the view.
Nice. Then I wonder, is there a way to fix that? Like even if it's put in some sort of, if there was like some sound padding we could.
Yeah, yeah, maybe we could. I'll look into that and see what we can do.
I'll just need a cord.
Looks like standing alone.
Yes, thank you, the HDMI adapter, so. I don't That's part grab it from you, or, okay, so this goes, yep, two boards. You just want me to keep this, go and plug in, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
grab
just
it?
this out, and then after we're done, we'll get them out.
Very good.
All right.
You gotta love that. Oh, that's right, Tom's in between.
Well, that's great. Too bad, are you just here for a little while, or? Okay. Sure. So I'm from Bolivia and Mexico, and they were watching what we were doing, and we were down actually at the council of governments, kind of
get used. How do you? Yeah, and you feel like you get to do something that makes a difference. Yes, it makes a difference, right? What you want to do, it's a nice position. If I were building a camera, so the camera's not just to the back of these corners. Jim Michaelis. You know, he's on a mission in England.
I don't like
Been there 10 months, but he's coming home. Lost a grandchild to SIDS this week, Sunday morning. Yeah, not good. It's a no-brainer then. Go to St. George. Yeah. We go to Seattle on Thursday. I have some business up there, but my son also lives up there. So.
Hey, Tom, we don't come for weeks, you get all the presents.
Yeah, I know. And the junk mail as well.
I think we gave you all. Oops.
We would like to welcome everyone out to our city council meeting this evening and call this meeting to order. We'd like to begin with a prayer by Kirk Topham and then a pledge by Eric Lockhurst. So if Kirk could come forward.
Father in heaven, we're thankful to be able to gather together and have civil and reasonable dialogue in the matters of the city of Orem. We're thankful for this free country that we live in and for the opportunity that we have to express our voice and be heard, and we pray that sound decisions will be able to be made and that all will be informed well. And we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Will the audience please rise? After me. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be.
Thank you, Kirk and Eric. We would now like to go on to the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of the City Council Alpine School District Joint Meeting of January 20th, 2016. Is there a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We would like to go over some of the upcoming events here in the next little while. On March the 5th at the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce is going to be holding their Eggs and Issues at 7:15 a.m. in the morning. That's a Saturday morning at the Utah Valley Regional Medical Center, Northwest Plaza, the Clark Auditorium. On March the 11th, the SIRA is holding their 11th annual Benefit Arts Gala. On March the 22nd, we have the caucuses and primaries for presidential election. On March the 24th, we have the Utah Valley Chamber holding their Pillar of the Valley event at the Utah Valley Convention Center. And that will be honoring the Woodbury family and Becky Lockhart. On March the 28th, Brent Brown Toyota is holding a grand reopening in the afternoon. On April the 6th through the 8th, the Utah League of Cities and Towns is having their mid-year convention at the Dixie Center in St. George. On April the 30th, the Sunset Heights East neighborhood is having their picnic and cleanup event. On May the 21st, the Miss Orem Scholarship Pageant will be taking place at 7 p.m. at the Sierra. And on May the 30th, we'll have our City of Orem Heritage Commission Memorial Day program at the Orem City Cemetery at 9 a.m. We don't have any appointments to boards or commissions. We'd like to go ahead and move on to personal appearances. We have two people that have signed up. We would ask that you state your name and address, keep your comments to 3 minutes each. And we'll hear first from Sam Taylor, and then second from Mark Tippett. Okay. So you're going to speak twice, is that right? No, once. Okay.
My name is Mark Tippett. My address is 876 South 725 West. I'm one of the representatives for the Sunset Heights neighborhood. I was also one of the first speakers. This by no means that we've run out of speakers. It's just that everyone seems to be busy this week. Tonight I would like to present an alternative option to the Steele and Eichel proposal, understanding that we're only squeaky neighbors, and that ultimately the Steeles and Eichel have the ultimate decision to make along with the City Council. But this option in no way represents an improved solution for all the thousands of folks that have signed the petition against the Eichel development, primarily because we have only run this by our neighborhood committee and not all of the neighbors. Finally, the Steele family and Eichel have not seen this option, but tomorrow we have a planned meeting with them, and hopefully they'll be willing to listen to what we have. As neighbors, we understand that eventually this property must develop if the current project is not approved. To begin, first we have met with UVU officials and discussed this option. They see that this is an acceptable alternative for them. In front of you are several pictures of married student housing projects located in Florida and in Texas. They are planned unit developments that could still be a joint venture between the Steele family and Ivory Development. The shared revenue option is left in place. Of course, the density is not as high as the current proposed 1,100 beds in phase 1. The positives to this option is the traffic impact would not be as high for 8th South and 8th West. And as you know, the traffic on those streets is currently at 70% levels. Married housing does not have a high turnover rate. After the winter semester, students leave and occupants rates go down. Married housing, this means that the LDS members could possibly be absorbed into present LDS family wards, where student housing places an additional burden because students' wards are not at peak levels and little to no acreage space for new buildings. This still brings students and their families close to the universities where they can enjoy plays, sports, arts, and other activities the school has to offer. Finally, it keeps in place the Orem City theme as a family-friendly city. We thank you for the time that you have given us, and we're grateful and sincerely like to thank all of you for the service that you give to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go ahead on to item 13, which is a consent item. This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to transfer $6,500 from the city council contingency account to fund council participation in the upcoming Pillar of the Valley and Sierra Gala events. The city council contingency account of $25,000 has already been approved in the budget and is part of the budget. Background on this: the mayor and city council traditionally participate in programs aimed at building the image and stature of the city. The Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce, Pillar of the Valley Gala, and the Sierra Gala are two such programs that enrich the overall community. Recommendation by the city manager is that the city council by resolution authorize the transfer of $6,500 from the city council contingency fund to the appropriate accounts to fund participation in two community enhancement programs, the Pillar of the Valley Gala and the annual Sierra Gala. As such, I would like to go ahead and make a motion that the city council authorize the city manager to transfer $6,500 from the city council contingency account to fund council participation in the upcoming Pillar of the Valley and Sierra Gala events. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll go ahead. Councilmember Spencer?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution passes. We'll move on to scheduled items. This is a continued item. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a performance contracting agreement between the city and Siemens Industry, Inc., pertaining to the installation of several facility improvement measures designed to significantly reduce the city's energy consumption, and 2, a master lease purchase agreement, associated leasing schedule, and an escrow agreement with Siemens Public, Inc. with regards to the financing of the equipment that will be installed as part of the facility improvement measures, and authorizing the taking of all other actions necessary to the consummation of the transactions contemplated by such documents. This is a continuation, and our presenter is Bill Bell and Mark Cram.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're excited to be before you again tonight. Really, we have nothing new for you other than this slide that we have up now, and I'll let Mark just kind of go through this, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Bill. Fairly simple, straightforward slide. Bill had asked me to provide some additional information to all of you regarding other Utah projects that have been completed. And so what you see here are the total dollars for the projects. And then the average annual dollars saved is based on the savings throughout the entire project. Obviously, we have escalation rates and those kinds of things built in, so that's an annual average as opposed to year over year. And the simple payback is calculated by the total dollars of the project divided by the average annual dollars saved. I'll also mention that you may recall that the savings are based on kilowatt hours saved, decatherms of natural gas, gallons of water. So it's actually measured by units, and then those saved units are multiplied by the utility rates to give you a dollar savings. So what is guaranteed are the units of measure. The dollars may vary depending on what happens with utility rates. Any questions on that?
So the payback in years relates to the kinds of equipment or the types of facilities you put in place. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Any questions by the members of the council?
I'll ask one.
Councilmember Seastrand.
So part of the savings also came from a reduction in labor or a reduction in maintenance. How do you measure that? I mean, if there's no change in personnel, what's the aspect that measures that over the years?
That's a really good question. Most of that, frankly, is based on the fact that you no longer have a need for replacements because the equipment is new. So as a result of new equipment, that means you require fewer repairs. So most of those numbers are based on what money has been spent heretofore for mostly outside labor and those kinds of repairs, because we recognize that typically cities aren't going to displace personnel based on these projects. So it's based on material purchases and outside labor that may be required for those repairs.
Gotcha. So So it's basically saying instead of before where you've contracted for someone to come in and do some of the work, you're no longer contracting to do that. And that it's not a matter of measuring our own internal labor, it's an outside measurement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just if I may, you'll recall, Council, in our pre-meeting, our Public Works Director noted that some of the incentives that have been previously offered by Rocky Mountain Power are changing. Of course, in the overall financial assessment of this relationship, incentives were considered from Rocky Mountain Power. I just want to confirm that, in fact, those incentives are secure, that in no way these changes that are being discussed currently by Rocky Mountain Power will any way affect the, obviously, the incentives that have been essentially negotiated with the city.
The answer to that is yes, as long as those documents have been executed prior to March the 10th. So the city will need to sign the incentive agreements from Rocky Mountain Power. They are in the process, and probably Taggart could give us a better indication of where they're at. But if they are not signed prior to March 10th, those incentives will be reduced to about a third of what they were originally.
Councilmember Spencer.
So on the 5 cities that we're looking at, Salt Lake, Washington, Syracuse, Ogden, and Farmington, so have you hit your guarantee on those, on the savings?
Yes, with one caveat. One of the phases that we did with Salt Lake City, there was a failure in the solar thermal system. One of the main lines broke, and so as a result of those repairs, they didn't realize the savings for the heating of the water. So we actually, in conjunction with the contractor who was responsible for those repairs, had to refund the city for those lost savings. Other than that, the guarantees have been met.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember McDonald.
And of note, we're not doing any solar work in this proposal.
Correct.
Councilmember Sumner.
Thank you, Mayor. Of all these other cities, they didn't do the entire rollout of all their facilities, and we're doing a complete rollout of all our energy sources. Can you give us some reasoning behind that?
This gives us a very unique opportunity. With a few of the things that we're doing, for streetlights, for example, we're going to enjoy significant savings in costs. Those costs are already budgeted to pay Rocky Mountain Power. With those savings now, we're able to roll in some other stuff in facilities like the boiler at the senior center, which, by the way, went down right before the Valentine's dance. And it took about 4 hours of labor with my staff and an outside source to get it back up. And then it was down again today. So we're able to put something like that into this and not ask for any more new money. It's paid for through savings that are already budgeted for the utilities. The elevator, again, items like that we're able to roll in throughout the facilities. It allows us as staff to use our one-time monies in our budgeting for other priorities and get stuff that's ready to die and we'd have to spend anyway and use those one-time monies. We pay for them with the savings throughout the life of this project.
Thank you.
So one thing I'm sorry, Mark.
May I just make one more comment, Mayor? In the case of Washington City, it did include multiple facilities as well as street lighting. In the case of Syracuse, South Ogden, Farmington, those were street lighting projects only. Salt Lake City, this represents multiple buildings and other facilities, including park irrigation and golf courses. So essentially the top 2 are multiple facilities, the other 3 are street lighting only.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spencer.
So as I drove around the city and looked at the different lights, to me it seemed like the LED lights in the neighborhoods, they were more like a soft white, maybe more of a yellow than a bright white. Did we pick a color? I mean, a soft white or a, no?
You want me to go? you can pick really any color you want. Typically, when LED is used, it's on the whiter end of the spectrum as opposed to the kind of more yellow end of the spectrum. But many different, they call it CRI, color rendering index, or color temperature in this particular case. It's available from what you would see with an incandescent all the way up to what you would see with the sun. And I'm not sure what color went into the city. I'm not sure what that temperature is.
Are we going to pick a certain color, or is it?
We would have that opportunity to pick colors.
So the ones that were put in the city, were they different colors, or they just?
And I'm not aware of what Keith Larson installed, what color.
Could we get a definition of that if this passes before those lights are put in, to know what it is that you're looking at?
Sure, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say I appreciate the references that were given. I think any time that you're doing a project, you should ask for references. It makes sense to do so. In that realm, I, like others, called around. I called Troy Baker, Parks Director at Salt Lake City Corporation, Robert Whiteley at Syracuse City, Ray White at Farmington City, Mark Henning at Washington City. Had very good conversations with them. Several things they mentioned was that they had, most of them had used induction lighting due to the lack of a warranty on LED lights that were the case 3 years ago. Now those warranties are there, and I believe that we're looking at a 12-year warranty, if I'm correct.
On street lights, yes.
On the lights, and they're projected to last about 20 years, I believe, if that's correct. I think it's important to note that that all of those cities gave a good reference, and they find that the savings are there, and that they are able to make the payments from the savings, and they're finding good results from that. I know that we do a energy audit at the end of each year to make sure that, in fact, savings are being received for the work being done. One gentleman suggested using a third party by the city to look at that. They use Sunrise Engineering. Noticed that several of the cities had some facilities that were put in that were defective, and those were replaced quickly. They also stated that their project was put into place quickly, and I think we're talking a year and a half approximately for the total project.
For the
18 months
18
total.
months. Yes, okay. Together with that, one thing that, as Councilmember Spencer did, I drove around. We were given a list of 150 locations in the city, so I went and visited 800 East Center Street, 1200 North, 800 East. I visited 800 East and 800 North and 1000 East, University Parkway east of State Street, Geneva Road south of 800 South, 1000 North, 600 East, 750 North, 1200 West, 790 North, 1200 West, 200 North, 400 East, and 540 South, 800 West. I found the lights to be acceptable. It appears that the light comes down at a brighter condensance or whatever, going straight down rather than out. So I thought they did a very good job. I wasn't aware of anybody having a problem. I did investigate with one city where they had put in some new LED lights in a neighborhood, and the neighbors were very pleased. Their comment was that they liked them much better than the induction lights. Anyway, so with that said, I feel like that this is a good program that will be beneficial to the city, and I believe that Siemens enjoys a good reputation for the work that's being done, and good corporation to work with. So I would entertain a motion to move forward.
I'm willing to give that a second try, Mayor.
You bet.
All right. I move that we, by resolution, authorize the mayor or his designee to execute, I think we clarified in the last meeting, a performance contracting agreement between the city and Siemens Industry Incorporated, and a master lease purchase agreement, associated leasing schedule, and an escrow agreement with Siemens Public Incorporated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Luray.
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'd now like to move on to item number 15, which is a public hearing on the stormwater utility fee increase. This is for adjusting the storm sewer fee per equivalent service unit from $5.25 per ESU to $6.25 per ESU to fund capital improvements identified in the recently adopted 2016 Stormwater Master Plan. And I believe that Reed Price and Chris Shirkey will be our presenters.
Mayor and Council, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm Chris Shirkey, the Public Works Director, and Reed is our Maintenance Division Manager, who is also over our Stormwater section and has been heading up the Stormwater Master Plan with Bowen Collins and Associates. I'd like to turn the time over to Reed to make the presentation, after which, or during the presentation, please feel free to stop or interrupt, and if there's any clarification or any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for putting us on the agenda. This presentation is a shortened version of what we presented back at the end of January when you adopted the Stormwater Master Plan, which was a 2-year process to get done. So we're focusing primarily on the rates and what's needed in order to accomplish the goals and projects and objectives of the Stormwater Master Plan. So I'd like to just briefly go through the process to assure the council and the public that this isn't a knee-jerk reaction. This is something that we've thought about and planned out over the past couple of years. It began 2 years ago in February of 2014. We entered into an agreement with our consultant, Bowen Collins and Associates, and looking at three of the city's utilities, stormwater, sewer, and drinking water. The staff worked intimately with Bowen Collins and Associates, and as did the Public Works Advisory Commission over a period of about a year to a year and a half. In January of 2015, the Public Works Advisory Commission was presented with a draft master plan, which they endorsed as simply a draft that they knew would be refined over time. During the spring and summer, we brought regular updates to the City Council, received feedback from you, and made changes to the plan as well as to the rate schedule that was being suggested. We also had a significant public outreach effort, including use of social media. Our website was updated as soon as we had information available for the public to review. We sent several mailings, direct mails to the citizens about the plans for the utilities, and included it in the newsletters whenever newsletters were sent out. In August of 2015, we held a series of 2 open houses in the evening and invited residents to come, and they were well attended. There was a lot of interest. We were able to explain a lot of aspects of all of the 3 utilities that we were looking at, and to help them understand the need to have a good, solid plan moving forward in order to ensure that our utilities are maintained and work properly so that we can continue to have the quality of life that we enjoy. In December of 2015, we had our first work session with you where we brought what we felt was the final version of the draft plan and presented that to you, and then presented it to you in a formal fashion here during the general session on January 26th. At that point, that's where you as a council adopted and also accepted the stormwater user. It was me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll continue.
But it was better over at the podium?
Yeah, I could try it, but then I have to.
And you can't
Punch one of the buttons and just turn off one of the
turn them off.
We did
turn them
turn
back.
this one off.
Okay, turn off the other one.
Okay, I'll talk quiet maybe. This slide is a prioritized list of our projects. Try it. I'll just have Chris. Oh, all right.
It's obviously you.
Personality.
Okay, it's that microphone up there. Okay, so I'm hooked up. Need to escape that. Why is it not showing up, Ernesto?
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is the laptop that's.
Yeah, I should turn my volume off. All you Apple lovers are going to blame the Surface, I know. So. Okay,
Much better.
probably was the volume. So keep note of that, Ernesto. Okay, this slide is simply shows that we as staff have taken the projects that have been identified by the consultant and prioritized them. If the 5-year rate increase option is adopted, this is how staff has proposed to roll these projects out. You can see that we take on one or two projects depending on the dollar amount of those projects each year. And we've got approximately in projects per year. To summarize all of them, there's 144 projects that are pipe that's in the ground. There are open panel improvement, detention basin improvements on with 24 projects totaling $6.5 million, culvert improvement, and the total present value of all of the projects that are needed that are needed according to the plan of the Stormwater Master Plan total $61 million. And much of that is pipelines, particularly as was discussed in the last presentation, because we're trying to move water from the wellhead protected areas to protect groundwater. So that's where a significant cost comes in. We were given direction by the council to, as much as we could, try to follow a pay-as-you-go plan. Let's save money and then spend it on projects that we know are needed, and to not incur debt if not necessary. So the stormwater utility is unique in that the needs are not as great as some of the other utilities, so we can it's easier for us to follow that request of the council. Now I'd like to talk briefly about the stormwater fee. How do we pay for the stormwater utility that protects our property by controlling flooding, protects water quality by making sure that water is conveyed and dissipated? Well, this is based upon impervious surface that a residence or a business has. It's a term called the equivalent service unit. The ESU is equivalent to the average impervious area of a residential property, and that's been determined to be about 2,700 square feet. That's pretty standard in the industry. We currently charge $5.25 per ESU. So each single family home regardless of size, is charged $5.25 per ESU. Businesses are also charged by the ESU based upon the amount of impervious surface that they have. Impervious surface means surfaces such as asphalt and concrete, roofs, areas that water can't percolate into the ground. It's the most accepted method for funding stormwater utilities around the country. So, for example, if a business had 27,000 square feet of impervious surface area, they would be charged for 10 ESUs or pay $52.50 a month. We also provide an opportunity for businesses to receive a credit. So if we look at this example of...
Reed, one question. Could you just explain how they could receive a credit and what that entails?
Sure. Credits are given for best management practices that business put in place. Things that they do on a routine basis to make sure that the stormwater that they are responsible for is as clean as they can possibly get it. This could be things such as sweeping their parking lots on a regular basis. It could be simply educating their employees about the best way to dispose of garbage and to make sure that the lids are down so that rainwater doesn't get into the garbage and then out. There are many different best management practices that can be put in place. Those are just a few examples. And the businesses work directly with our staff to determine how much credit they receive. This example of Costco that I was bringing up, Costco is charged for 264 ESUs. They have approximately 700,000 square feet of impervious area. You can see in here that they have a lot of asphalt parking lot area. They have a pretty big roof as well. So they have a lot of area that water can't infiltrate into the ground. So based upon 700,000 square feet, their bill would be their bill is $1,386 per month, or approximately the average amount that each of us probably spend at Costco every month. So they also participate in the credit program, where their best management practices gives 23 ESUs. So they get a credit of $120.75 for sweeping their parking lot regularly and educating their public. Just over the fence from Costco is a home. I chose one because it was in close proximity. And this just represents the average resident in Orem. As I mentioned, each resident is charged for 1 ESU because of their roof, their driveway, and walkways. On average, around Orem, a resident has 2,700 square feet of impervious area, and they're billed $5.25 a month. So if you look at the Costco example again, you can see the home that I used as an example is just to the west of Costco. They're charged $1,265.25, and the average resident is $5.25. If you took the impervious area of the home and spread it out all through the parking lot, just lined it up, you would find that they would have about 264 ESUs. With what they get some credits for those. In the original Stormwater Master Plan passed in 1998, the recommendation was to take the rates that was $3 per ESU at the time and to double them and slowly increase them over time to where it would be approximately $11 today. You can see that was the plan based upon the improvements that were recommended back then. This is what was done over time. We're significantly less than what we had hoped to do back in 1998. In fact, if you compare that with inflation, the stormwater rate has not even kept up with inflation, which means we're investing in our capital at a similar, actually at a lesser rate than we were during when the master plan was approved back in 1998. We're here recommending that with the approval of the master plan last month, that we need to begin correcting that and investing in this system so that it doesn't, so that it continues to provide the level of service that our citizens have grown to expect. This is a slide that you're familiar with. This is a comparison of other utilities, and to see the cost increase over time, you can see that, that the gas company and the electric company are increasing rates. One of the reasons, I'm sure, is to invest in the capital infrastructure to ensure reliability into the future. This also shows the water, sewer, and the stormwater rates as well. And then superimposing inflation on top of those, you can see that, that both gas and electric, the rates have exceeded inflation, which is another indicator that they are investing in capital. Now, the rates that we propose to you, the utility rate study that you accepted on January 26th gave three different options. The first was a 5-year plan. This increased the cost, the rates over a 5-year period, increasing $1 for the first year, then 50 cents the second, 35 cents, 25 cents, 25 cents, to where it reaches a point where it's as if we can adjust for inflation on an annual basis, then we will be on a good trajectory to achieve the numerous projects in the master plan over a period of many years. But we'll be headed in the right direction. Also, the City Council asked us to look at a 7-year option as well, where we increase that rate just a little slower, where it's just 70 cents the first year, then 45. By doing so, we end up postponing $725,000 of projects into the future. We were also asked to look at a 10-year plan. This 10-year plan goes even slower, starting out a 60-cent jump in year 1, then 40, 35, and slowly until we reach inflation at 20 cents. If by selecting this option, we postpone $1.6 million into the future. If you were to compare us to other cities, you can see that on this line, Orem City has average or low rates in the stormwater utility. We're not the lowest. You can see that Lehigh, West Valley, and West Jordan have lower rates. With this increase, we would still be we would be further up the list, but still significantly less than some of the other cities in the area and similarly sized cities. So that is the quick reminder of what we discussed on the 26th when you adopted the master plan and accepted the utility rate study. So we're ready for questions.
Councilmember Luray.
Are you recommending that this increase happen the next billing cycle or wait till July 1 like we did with the sewer base rate?
Our recommendation is to start at April 1st.
April 1st, okay.
Councilmember McDonald.
Reed, could you go back to the slide that showed what the proposal was back in 1998?
You want the information?
That, I think that one right there. That's, I don't care with or without the dot, with or without the red or yellow. I think there's not a lot of people here, but I think it's pretty. They made a decision back almost 20 years ago now, 17 years ago, to have an increase, and they had assumed they would be making increases each year. In fact, we didn't. In truth, we're making a proposal, but the only year that's locked in is what we're doing this year, and then we're showing what our thoughts are in out years. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
I have, we did draft in the resolution a provision at your request to make sure that staff doesn't let this die and that we come to you and remind you that this plan was adopted by the City Council. The membership may change in the future, but at least we can say that this was important at this time, and we as staff have done our job to remind them that it's the council's, it was the council's desire in 2016 to move this particular plan forward.
Thank you very much.
So a question, Reed, with regards to that, are we looking for a reminder from staff to council in February of each year, in other words, 12 months from now, for a reminder to look at moving forward?
During the budgeting process, we will have that proposed.
I think that's the important part, that we're the same time every year, and that in fact this comes before the council every year. I think maybe that's kind of what's happened in the past, is that that has not occurred. So yes, Chris.
Mayor, I'd also like to suggest that we will also be bringing before you every year, we'll report back to you on what we've been able to accomplish. If there's been any delays or anything that had to change, we will make you aware of that and then look to you for counsel and direction at that time as well, and bring forward a prospective plan for the next year, subsequently into the subsequent years as well.
So a master plan audit or report is
correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Seastrand.
Thank you. I know that, as we just overall think of the strategy behind what we're looking for from the stormwater system, that the real intent is to get as much of the rainwater back into the ground so that we can eventually drink that down the road. And I know part of what we're trying to do with this stormwater system is to protect our wellheads. So a significant part of what we're using the funding for is to say we want the water back in the ground, but we don't want it back in the ground around the wells. So we need to make some adjustments and some changes from that standpoint. The other aspect is that we're trying to deal with some of these larger storms, that when we get a fairly significant storm, our infrastructure is capable of handling the volume of water without flooding out basements, without tearing up roads, without causing damage throughout the city. And so to do that, we've got the retention basins, we've got a series of networks of piping that ends up moving that water, that high volume water, through various parts of the city and eventually out down into a drainage area, which takes care of that. Is that kind of basically what we're doing with?
That's a great summary. So we're first and foremost, we're trying to protect our groundwater for future generations for drinking. We don't want to contaminate any well sources and then decommission a well. It's very expensive. So we're looking at getting that out of those areas, protecting the wellhead protection areas or the wellhead sources, and then moving it out into areas where we can inject where it's safer.
So I know there are some individuals that say, gee, it feels like you're charging me for the rain. Why are you charging me for when it rains? Well, we're not charging you for the rain. We're charging you for how the city addresses the rain in our efforts to say, don't just send it down the gutter, but let's get it back in the ground. Let's have a system that tries to capture the rain and preserve it for our future use. And as you look at the two examples that you had, the one with Costco, large parking lot, no place for that to go. What happens to the water as it goes into that drainage system? In a Costco scenario, where does it go?
Currently it's injected into the ground, and so if that's in a wellhead protection area, we'd look to route that away from that wellhead protection area.
Yeah,
so there's a large injection system there.
And most of the area, the rain goes. So it does have to go through some type of system because the pavement covers up the ground. So
that's correct.
Back in. But with that house, it was interesting. If you look at it, you have a lot of grass around the home. And a lot of the rain gutters kind of drop the water back into the ground. The area we're dealing with there really is the area in front of the home, which is the street, and the driveways or the sidewalks, which then would have some drainage. So the $5.22 or the $5.25 or the $6.25 really is to address that runoff area that an individual property owner doesn't naturally handle, so that we have a way to address it.
That's correct. Yes.
And that's why there's a significant difference between what Costco does and what a homeowner does.
Right. And as you consider the history and where we've come from as a community, back in the early 1900s, it was an agricultural community, a variety of fruits and orchards and so forth. This Costco area was an orchard probably not many years ago. And at that time, that water primarily stayed on the land where it actually fell. And some areas where it was steeper and so forth, that might have run off the property. We're trying to contain that water and to manage property damage as well as water quality.
Now, we for the most part, our system currently handles the storms that we get, but we had a really big couple of storms not too long ago. Give me an idea about to what extent is this, how big of a storm is still going to overflow our system to where this doesn't protect everything, but it gets most of what we're trying to work with?
Sure. The system, the network that we have that will be designed is designed to a 10-year storm event. The stormwater detention facilities will handle a 25-year storm event. In Orem, we have storms that may exceed a 100-year storm event. At the end of a 50-year bike ride with some scouts about 2 years ago, we had a really bad storm that came in, and I told the boys to scatter and make it home, and they did. But at that storm event, you may recall that there were some reports that we may have even had a tornado. We did exceed a 100-year storm event. We did have property damages. We cannot design a system. We can design a system to handle the 100-year storm, but it is cost prohibitive. This right in and of itself is about a $60 million plan for a 10-year storm. It won't take care of all of the nuisance flooding that will occur, because there will be still nuisance flooding, but it will handle the vast majority of the events that occur in the community.
It seems like that storm that came through, we ended up getting in certain neighborhoods about 2 inches of water in an hour.
We got over an inch. We got between 1 and 1.5 inches in that hour. And it was very interesting as you looked at the weather patterns and all of our gauges that we had in the community. Everything on the east side exceeded 1 inch in an hour, and on the west side, it was probably closer to a quarter of an inch. Mm-hmm. So even within the community, within the 18 square miles, the impact of the storm varied greatly from the east to the west side of the community.
And that was the same storm that I think Provo had some significant damage on.
Yes,
on
that's correct.
Hillside.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little bit of damage within our city, but that was a big, significant storm, and it seemed like our storm system seemed to at least mitigate much of the potential problem that we would have had without the infrastructure.
I believe it did, yes.
Great, thank you.
One thing I remember and notice is when I moved here in 1992, we did not have retention ponds and we did not have streetlights. And I remember how dark the city was, and I remember how much water we had rushing all over our streets and our lawns and our home areas due to the lack of retention ponds. And so the money that has been spent to improve our city has been spent wisely. I believe that to keep this stormwater system running properly, I think it's important that we invest in it, and I think that to do our fiduciary responsibility, we need to keep it up to date and in good condition for those who will live here in the future. So I feel good about what's proposed and the direction we're going. Any other comments from the council? This is a public hearing, so I will go ahead and open it up to the public. We'd ask anyone who wishes to make a comment to hold their comments to 3 minutes and give us their name and their address.
My name is Bob Wright. I live at 1010 North, 700 West. I've already given you a copy of my notes. As a longtime resident in Orem, I have observed many yearly increases to the utility bill. I object to this $1 per month increase in the stormwater account. City management has hired 2 outside consulting firms to study and propose a continuing long-term increase to control the rainwater drainage to a final rate of $8.60 per month on Orem cities, which I believe is exorbitant and not necessary. Improvements can be made on a as-needed and prioritized basis with monthly income in this account and reserves of nearly $650,000. Richard Manning told me that the city mails out 30,100 utility bills monthly now, and increasing as development and population grows. The monthly income in the stormwater account at the present $5.25 rate is $15,802.50 per month on the 30,100 present mailings, which I believe is sufficient for ongoing pay-as-you-go improvements to the system. The $1 per month increase proposed would only bring in another $3,010. Salaries, benefits, and maintenance is covered with property tax infrastructure. Please stop this $1 per month tax increase on Orem citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who wishes to make a comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, public comment portion of this public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any comments or questions from the council?
So I think in when we discussed this last month, I had a question about a large apartment complex, for example. So even though they're residential, we would do an assessment to see what we estimate their ESU equivalent to be, right? So if we have a duplex or a fourplex, would they be assessed one ESU per unit, or would we, if anything more than one living unit in that residence, would we have to do an assessment to see?
Yeah, Mr. Lentz, we've had some internal discussions to better understand how our policy is written to do these, to bill for that. The residential units are charged $5.25 per unit. There are the apartment complexes with one account are charged based upon their surface area or their impervious area, and then the duplexes and the fourplexes are charged based upon their account as one ESU, and there's some there is some variance, some change that we're trying to better understand. We are billing according to how the billing structure is designed, but getting back to the sewer base rate discussion that we've had, it's a balancing manageability and fairness that comes into place. So there are some condo areas that have individual meters that are charged for one ESU, and they may not have 2,700 square feet, but they're still billed $5.25, whereas a fourplex is billed for one ESU as well. But we're following the guidelines that were set for calculating the bill, but there is what could be interpreted as some unfairness, but that's just going to happen with a city our size and with so many unique residences.
And I don't think it will necessarily change or impact the decision we make tonight on the specific rate, but I'm wondering if we could more clearly define, as we did with the sewer base rate last month, so that we have a good understanding of a single-family home with an accessory apartment. How is that handled versus a duplex, a fourplex, a large apartment complex? So
We can look at that, and we'll bring a recommendation back to you or our findings back to you as well. So, for example, we may have a 12-plex or a complex with multiple unit facilities or buildings. Where they go vertical, maybe they shouldn't be charged $5.25 per unit, but based on the impervious area as you view it from the sky. So we will reevaluate that and bring that back to you for a recommendation.
Because part of the reason that we've equalized it or normalized it at 2,700 square feet is just the feasibility of being able to assess every single household would be financially prohibitive.
It would clearly take some time to evaluate every single multifamily facility, but we can do that. We have that technology. We have a GIS system where we can go out and look at that. We have done that for all of the non-residential facilities, from a strip mall to a large Costco type development and so forth. That's much simpler, and there are fewer of those larger complexes, but there are more that we'd have to look at, and we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
So with regards to that, I think it's important to, as we look at this, to update the system citywide.
And how it's applied.
And how it's applied.
Correct. We will do that.
And that may not have been done for 10 years or whatever, but I think now would be a good time to do that. So.
We will do that.
Okay, good. Any other comments or questions from the council?
I did want to mention that I think Mr. Wright mentioned that this dollar increase, I didn't quite understand. I think he said it was going to generate about $3,000. I'm not certain what that was referring to, but I know that the dollar increase will $1,000 for this utility citywide for new revenues.
Yes,
Just wanted to make that clear.
per year.
Per year.
And you have to take into account that it's not just residential homes, but it's businesses, apartments.
That's correct.
Commercial. So you can't look at it just as 30,000 homes. It's 30,000 different kinds of accounts. So
correct.
Okay. Councilmember McDonald.
No, I was ready to make a motion, so sorry. I'll see if you're with the communication.
I'm ready for a motion. Would you like to make one?
I move that the Orem City Council by resolution adjusts the storm sewer fee per equivalent service unit, or ESU, from $5.25 to $6.25 per ESU to fund needed capital improvements and identified in the 2016 Stormwater Master Plan.
Might I add, if I may, Council or Mayor, that you add an effective date to that motion?
Effective April 1st, 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Spencer.
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution passes. Thank you, Reed and Chris.
Thank you for your time.
Councilmember McDonald.
I know this isn't part of the resolution, but next year we're going to have to decide if we're rolling out a 5, 7, or 10-year plan. Do you want any discussion on it at this point, or do we leave that to next year?
At this point, this was accepted as a 5-year plan as outlined right now.
Perfect.
So what they should bring back to us next year would be the 5-year plan, and then
Thank you.
We'll be bringing back 50 cents next year unless something crazy happens.
You'll look at the numbers. Thank you.
Okay. Any communication items or city manager items? Okay, Jamie, would you want to mention we do have 2 retirements? I think it'd be beneficial to bring that up.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council, as we shared with you in our pre-meeting, we had 2 members of our streets department, our streets section, that have retired from the city. Stan Orm, who's our streets section manager, has been an employee actually with us in excess of 40 years. He started on literally as a high schooler and worked full-time with the city of Orem for 38 years. And he's retiring, as well as John Fillmore, who is another member of the streets team, who is retiring after 30 years. So we appreciate these 2 gentlemen, their contributions to the city. They are 2 who, for example, on a cold, stormy night, have been out on our streets pushing snow and making sure that people can get to work in the next morning and such. And so their contributions are significant. Both of them have also played a role in this storm drain discussion and actually making sure that water finds its way to the lake when we do have storm events. So their contributions are much, much appreciated.
Thank you, Jamie. I was just going to say I receive recommendations almost every other week from somebody over a city employee who's gone beyond what they've been called to do, to go out and help somebody in need in the city or to perform the work that needs to be done regardless of the time of day or the weather circumstances. We have some wonderful staff, and we appreciate those who put in the effort and appreciate these 2 fine gentlemen, so thank you. With that, nothing else on our agenda. I would accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
You're going to push.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. And we're all going down to room 107.